My name is Rosie Wand, and this was my MSN practicum project. It took place at Tacoma General on a progressive care unit, implementing new external catheters to reduce indwelling catheter use. This project came about based on the continued need to reduce the risk of CODIs to patients and the goal to reduce the use of indwelling catheters to meet that need. A representative from Stryker who was working on this unit to implement other devices introduced these new external catheters, the Primo Fit for males and the Primo Fit for females, to staff of the unit, and we decided that these would be an improved option on the current external catheters available. The Primo Fit improves on the current condom catheters that are available to males by providing a loose-fitting bag to collect urine, and because of this open system, the device is able to be hooked up to continuous suction to provide wicking and allow for dry skin. The female version, the Primo Fit, is similar to the PureWick that is currently in use. However, it offers a flexible shape to fit to the female anatomy, and both devices have a silicone adhesive to secure the device to the suprapubic area. This device focused on patients that needed a catheter for urinary management, whether they currently were using indwelling or external, and we also focused on the nursing staff to provide education about why this was important and how to use the new device. The intervention took place over about 6 weeks. So for the first 2 weeks at the end of July, education was provided in the form of newsletters, practice alerts, and during huddles during the week before the trial was implemented. And then for a month, the trial will take place on the unit, so all current external catheter devices will be replaced with the Primo Fit and Primo Fit, as well as education will be provided during that month and support for nurses in using these new devices. Pre-trial, a survey was distributed to CNAs and nursing staff, as well as post, and the pre-trial evaluated the current devices that were being used, and the post-trial survey was for nursing staff to evaluate the Primo Fit and Primo Fit. These questions focused on ease of use of the product, whether it kept patients dry, perceived comfort of the patient while wearing the device, and whether the device provided accurate urinary measurement. After post-trial data is collected, we will be able to compare the nurse's feedback and use this in our decision to switch to the new Primo Fit and Primo Fit as our external catheters. Unfortunately, due to COVID, as well as other hospitals wanting to join this trial, which was great, we pushed the start date of the trial to August 1st, so our findings have not been collected for the post-trial data. However, the data that we will be looking at is, first, for indwelling catheters, we looked at the standard utilization rate of their use, and this is a report from the National Healthcare Safety Network. So they estimate how many indwelling catheters a unit will use based on their patient acuity and number of patients, and they give that number to hospitals, and then they compare it with how many indwelling catheter days a unit actually had. So 1 would mean that your unit used the number of catheters, had the number of catheter days that was expected. So for this PCU, their SUR for the month before the trial was 0.453. So that means that they only used about half of the indwelling catheter days that NHSN said they could use. So that's a pretty good number. For external catheters, there is no SUR. It's not tracked by NHSN because it's not an indwelling line. So instead we looked at the number of devices that were used on that unit, how many patients had an external catheter that month, and then we also looked at how many of those devices were reported to have been used by inventory, and we found some pretty big discrepancies. For males, it was charted that 15 catheters were used, but inventory reported that about 70 external catheters are used by that unit monthly. For females, 23 were charted, but inventory reported that the PCU typically uses 55 unit devices per month. So we looked into this and found that nurses were charting when an external catheter was applied and that use was initiated, but they weren't necessarily charting when a new device was applied, which is changed every 12 to 24 hours or more, depending on patient's mobility and whether the device is staying in place. So to compensate for this discrepancy, we changed how external catheter interventions are charted in Epic and made it easier for nurses to chart when they are putting in a new external catheter that has already been in use by the patient. This change in Epic did not take place before the trial started, so trial data was comparable, but this will be taking place in Epic later this year. What was surprising about this trial was how interested all of the staff were. I thought that it was going to be difficult to get staff to be excited about a new product and they're going to have to learn about a new device and how to use it, but staff was really receptive to it, and when we showed them the products before the trial, they thought they were great and would make their work easier as well as make the patients more comfortable. And they also were interested in updating the Epic charting for external catheters so that they could more accurately track what they were doing without difficulty. So I think to take away from this, one of the big things was that making sure your staff is on board with a change you're making is really important, and including them from the beginning and getting their feedback from the beginning. The staff was involved, and we really tried to make sure that we were including their input from start to finish. And I really think that that will help this trial as it moves forward in August be successful. And it will also be valuable when we go to management to try and make this change to these products, which are more expensive than the current devices, that if nurses feel they're a better device for both them and the patient, and for reducing the risk of a CAUTI, that even with the increased cost, because of all of that input from the nursing staff, we will be able to convince them that these products are better. The other thing to take away from this is, even though this unit was doing really well in removing indwelling catheters and using external devices instead, 0.453 is a pretty good standard utilization rate for indwelling catheters. Again, that's half of what the NHSN said their unit should be using. There's always room for improvement. We should always be working towards reducing the risk of CAUTI for patients and finding alternatives for patient care. And so even though this unit was doing really well, there's always room to improve, and we should always be working towards that. And with that, I would like to acknowledge my preceptor for his support during this project, my clinical site for allowing me to be on site and allowing us to come back even with the COVID-19 going on, and my clinical instructor for being very supportive and flexible during this time. Thank you.